Cedrick, you are so damn good in boots. I mean, you must just getting a flood of compliments nonstop, not just from military people, but from people who watch the series and telling you, you got some skills.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, the love and support has been immense, and I am I am grounded in the appreciation that people have for it. I think it was a piece of a story that needed to be there, and I'm glad that people see the importance of it.
How was McKinnon originally described to you, and how did you make him your own?
So by the time we got to set, my before we got to set, before it was actually cast, I did the due diligence of reading the book. And why not get the actual opinion of McKinnon through the person that lived his experience from the eyes of Greg Cope White? So through his novel, I got a good understanding of what his essence was.
Hmm.
Also, when I got to set, the beautiful pieces that was incorporated from the showrunner Andy, as well as Peter Hoare, and what the nuances there, as well as the extra that Greg gave me face to face. I had an idea of what it kind of looked like, but in terms of how I found them, I feel like the essence of McKinnon was baked off tough love, meaning if they're not saying something or doing something to you in the manner that he knew how to give, something might have been wrong. He didn't care. And for me, I had someone personally in my life, my godfather, who was actually military based, that had to actually administer that tough love for myself.
Mm.
And so I kind of knew exactly what that sort of like felt like. So when I read the details of his essence and what that looked like, I'm like, oh, I know who this is.
He seems to be on friendly terms with his fellow sergeants Howitt, but not so much Sullivan. There seems to be a a divide between these two individuals. Is it because Sullivan's new to the staffing, or is it because, they just haven't warmed up to each other?
I think it's based on just curiosity and observance when it comes to someone being entered into your house. If you are having an event and someone comes there that you didn't know was coming, as well as you don't know the background too much other than probably reading something on a piece of paper, and they come in and then they have this demeanor and also these sort of choices that are being made with no sort of like motivation behind them. To you, you're going to be curious. You're going to be like, you're in my house. You're making these certain decisions that look like been here for a while. I don't know how to feel about it. I think McKinnon was really trying to figure out, okay, who is this guy? And trying to get as much information as he could from his militant eye that he had.
It's quite an exit and an entrance, I should say, too, for
Yeah,
Knox.
absolutely.
Was Knox, he gets transferred immediately based on what happens right out of the gate with the recruit. He punches Liam's character.
Mm-hmm.
Is he, I'm surprised, maybe some others were, that he wasn't discharged. Did they discuss to you like what ha kind of happens when someone asks out? It must have been difficult for you too, as someone who's a sergeant who's maybe not used to, I mean, who's surprised as well that Knox would lash out on your watch.
I think when you're in an environment that is its sole purpose is to create people that are going to create that are going to protect the entire country from a perspective of creating some of the toughest beings to actually go defend the lines of the country from a perspective of like you have to actually go and kill. I think the ethos that you create in that early on has to be a little bit aggressive. And I think that's what we were getting bits and pieces of, because a lot of the research that I did, and also when I talked to former military people, they said that was pretty accurate. You know, it depends on a channel and expression of masculinity at that given moment that was kind of like aggressive. And I think in terms of just like what the lifestyle is of a drill instructor in alone, it's pretty strenuous. It's something that if you don't necessarily have the right expression or the right outlet to administer a lot of the frustrations you possibly could be feeling with the lack of sleep that you have, the amount of time you're spent away from your family, the amount of time you have to do paperwork and all these different things to take care of these recruits. If you don't have a proper outlet, you then can probably express that anger in a certain type of way that then results in physicality. And if those recruits are there, those are unfortunately the ones that are going to be getting the bear of it.
You do have a beautiful home life, and there's this dichotomy to McKinnon, hard ass with his recruits and softness at home. It's beautiful love he seems to have for his wife and, of course, his newborn baby, his kids. Did Cameron talk about that dichotomy with you as well? I mean, excuse me, did Greg talk to you about that dichotomy as well, about how you turn it off at the end of the day as a
Yeah,
sergeant?
yeah. And also the military advisors that we had, they realize, and also when it comes to being in the universe that is the military, the minute you step on base, like the minute you step in that area, you're on, and you're not, and it doesn't turn off until you have to take that mask off. And so for that, when you are channeling the idea of authority, as well as preparing these young men and young women for an experience that literally can take their lives, there's no easy way to sugarcoat that. And if you try to sugarcoat that, I think you're doing a disservice. And I think for McKinnon, up until that point, he's been in the military, he's been in the Marines for 12 years. So up until that point, he's kind of like literally what it is. It's straight shooter. He's going to let you know exactly how it is. But from a perspective of a dad and someone that truly loves those that he is around and who are under his wing, I'm glad people got to see that other side of it, because they were able to see that this person cares. He genuinely cares. And you can see that when he actually communicates with Nash the way that he does, and when he looks after Nash the way that he does, and when he communicates with his little kid and everything. And as a dad myself, I have two boys. I've seen the different hats I've had to wear as a parent and as a man and as an authority and as a leader and as a husband, where you don't always have to be a certain shade. You know, you have to be different variations and different colors. And from that perspective, I love the piece that they put when he was talking to his son, because then you could say, okay, he plays, he has this little innocence about himself, and you could see the different shades that he shares with his son for that. So it was something that was beautiful, but his tough exterior definitely has cracks in it.
Well, how it seems to take Ochoa's passing personally very deeply. Um, but maybe McKinnon not so much. Maybe he's too distracted with his newborn, or maybe he just has experienced death within his units before. I mean, did you sort of talk to Greg about that as well, about how it takes it maybe a little bit more tough than McKinnon does when Ochoa passes?
I think Howard took it harder, and Nick would be able to disclose a lot more than I know. That said, I think Howard took it the way that he took it because he was there. And for McKinnon, I think there was a level of confusion as well as a level of ecstatic because he's trying to enjoy the fact that he's just entered a new life. Like a new life has just came into his world that he now has to nurture and take care of along with his wife. But also with a life coming in and life going out, that's very hard to digest. So for him, I think McKinnon really was in a weird space, you know, and as a parent, the first thing he could kind of think about was like, all I could think about is his parent. You know, all I can think about is his parents in terms of what they could be feeling and how they can be going, what they could be possibly going through. And for McKinnon, he's never lost a recruit. And he's in the space where you don't think you would lose a recruit
Sure.
in boot camp. That's not even a consideration at that point. So I think there's a level of confusion, a level of processing that still needs to take place. And then also a layer of masking, right? Because then now McKinnon has to go and he has to motivate his men to keep going after they just witnessed the death. They didn't just hear it, they saw this young man die in their face. And so having to throw that mask on, feeling what he was feeling, and then having to go motivate your people, I feel like that's one of the many different ways that soldiers go through in general that could be going through something personal. And then they have a platoon that they have to lead. And that could be in war, that could be in boot camp, and that could be in a lot of different areas of your
Right.
life as a whole. So I think it was very interesting, but I think that's why he took it the way he did.
We talk about Nash, and he ties him to Slovacek. His success or failure, depends on things. And he feels like maybe Nash is sort of sabotaging himself too, because, he feels guilt for talking crap about the recruits in his diary, and also feels guilty about not, having to tell his parents that he's been in the military he's been in the Marines this whole time. Does McKinnon sort of see himself in Nash, or has he seen many Nashes over the years? And this is what motivates him to look after him.
I think McKinnon understands what it's like of getting in your own way. And McKinnon's whole job is to restructure the whole psychology of the word I when it comes to these young recruits. He's trying to remove that whole idea of their heads. And the reason why he's so focused on Nash is because in a way he sees Nash as his older son at some point. And he has to look at him from a perspective of just like, you could literally be my son. You can literally be in this space where you're not seeing the walls you are building for yourself, just simply being who you are and being so focused on I. And so in these different exchanges, I think McKinnon is letting him know, hey, I care, but you still have to earn the love that I could have for you. And I think it was when he gave him the shaving cream that he needed, the magic powder. I think that was one of the indications where he's just like, I'm aware. You have to earn me respecting you, but I'm aware and I'm not as hard or as rough as you may think I am. And then also within these situations where he's so focused on him, I think Nash sees it as he's being kind of put on Front Street, being embarrassed, kind of bullied. But at the end of the day, if you have someone that is so committed and sees what you can be and they're not saying anything, that's when you should be worried. McKinnon was trying to show him in the way that McKinnon knows how to show him that if you can just remove this thing you have that is such ego, then you could possibly get to wherever it is that you really kind of you want to get to. And I think when he breaks and he tells him what's actually frustrated about him, he has to really show him. He was like, I do care, but he was just like, man, like you just really kind of don't get it as much. And I think over time, the dynamic of Nash and McKinnon is a very important one because sometimes we can have figures in our life that aren't our fathers, that aren't our uncles, that aren't our grandfathers, that come into our lives and they're trying to tell you the thing that either your parents were trying to remind you of, or one of your relatives were trying to remind you of that you just don't ignore. But for some way, sometimes other people have to administer it in a way that makes sense. And I think McKinnon was giving that to him, which Nash's dad probably wasn't able to give to him at the time.
Yeah, I mean, there is a tough love there too, but also he said his parents don't like, I mean, you're not privy to that on screen. You are not privy as McKinnon to that on screen, but we were that, he said, he hasn't told his parents and they are very anti-military. So for him to join is sort of like a spit in their face too, and he feels like he's letting them down. So I think when you come at him with your tough love, you're the older brother he needed to smack him in the head again and going like, you signed up for this, boy. You need to get yourself and get your stuff together. And
Yeah,
I see so much potential in you. And look, he goes on to be honor man, and that's just
yeah.
incredible. He figured out a way to lighten Santos's load on this within the parameters of your marching. And I think that's incredible. I have to ask about Joan's sleepwalking because that was an incredible scene. You have this kid marching through Louisiana swamp. And Sullivan goes after him. I mean, as a commander, you have to be sort of having that dichotomy too. You worried about a kid, another recruit that you could lose, but also, you have a sergeant who's going against orders. And does he know what's going on sort of at that time? Did they tell you that he was aware that Sullivan is, against orders traipsing after this kid?
I think up until that point, McKinnon found a new level of respect for Sullivan. And I think over time, he started to see more about Sullivan's heart and how Sullivan could kind of care for these Marines in the way that Sullivan cares. And I think in those moments where he had to break rules to get through to someone is the same thing McKinnon would do to make sure that a recruit doesn't get left behind. And I also think because Ochoa was already one that he lost, I think McKinnon wasn't going to allow another one. And the fact that he had someone willing to put themselves on the line, knowing for the repercussions, that to McKinnon was something that he respected so much as a Marine. And I think that's where McKinnon was just like, all right, I get it. Go ahead and do what you need to do. And because he felt as though Sullivan was very aware of the ramifications that could possibly take place. But also with that, I believe that McKinnon was the anchor, meaning like do whatever was needed to be done, regardless of your life choices. When he had an understanding or a potential understanding that Sullivan was being considered that he might be homosexual, McKinnon was just like, the heck does that have to do with anything? If that's his choice, that's his choice. What are we really focusing on? If anything, McKinnon was more frustrated at the fact that they're worried about that and someone died because of your closed mindset and so focused on something that is ego based and such so judgmental that someone's life got thrown on the line. But at that point, when Sullivan decided to go, and when it was a life or death situation, I think McKinnon had nothing but respect for him and allowed him to do that.
So is Sullivan AWOL? I wasn't 100% clear at the end. He's gone obviously against military wishes and gone after this kid, and then he leaves Cameron to return Jones back by himself.
Yeah, I think at that point, everything was starting to implode. I think up until that point, he realized the only way out is running. And I think over the course of however many seasons there'll be, or however they flesh out the story, you'll see the reasons why he does it. But for the most part, in his mind, when you're under stress and you see the walls closing in on you, he saw that the same tattoo that he had as the other man was a dead set aim. That was a target. Not to mention when he actually decided to go after this recruit to get something worked out and to try to save him, that's also going against the orders. Finally, you get into a bar fight that then now they are pressing charges. Those eyes, all of that attention would only bring forth the one thing that he was trying to hide the most. So at that point, I think what he's doing is, I got to get the heck up out of here. He was like, there's no way he can kind of maneuver his way through it. So I think the AWOL was just based out of stress, based out of trauma, based out of no other way that he actually saw to get out. But to answer your question, he is 100% AWOL. Everything he's did kind of went against what the Marine ethos was. And so in the seasons to come, I think you'll get a better understanding as to why he did it.
Well, you are so, so good in this. What kind of response have you been receiving from fans telling you either how your stories touch them, maybe even Marines reaching out telling you, I know that guy?
Thank you for that. And I think what I found to be most gratifying are the thank yous that I get from people that have been in the Marines and the military saying, I remember a drill instructor administering that tough love. And because of that, it's made me a better person. There was a video that I saw online of a woman crying to a scene where I was explaining to them like what they just earned will never fade. And she was describing what that moment meant for her with tears streaming down her face, recording herself. And in that moment, I'm like, man, the stories that you tell, the stories that you get to be a part of, and the gratified feeling you feel for the people that give you the opportunity to actually do it. This work is important. This work is meaningful. And when moments like that happen, it makes me so thankful that I'm just a vessel that was able to administer that truthfully.
What's next for you, Cedric? Have you been busy working on some other series or films?
I think what's next for me is what will come. I try my best to not force, I try my best to flow. And so I don't think about what's next, what's next. I just think about what can I handle right now. And right now, I am present, I am grounded. And when the next opportunity comes, I'm just going to commit like I committed to McKinnon and be thankful along the journey.
What would you like to say then to everyone who are fans of Boots and are, reaching out in that way and telling you how much the series means to them?
To say thank you for spending your time. Thank you for finding the things that you relate to it. Thank you for having an open mind in terms of the storyline and realizing how important it is and how everyone has a puzzle piece in this full puzzle that is this life. And so for that, thank you for contacting me. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the support. And along the journey, I'm taking all of it. I may not respond to all of it, but for the most part, I see a lot of it and I'm extremely thankful.
I've gushed a lot, but you really earned it.
Thank
You're
you.
so special in this series, and it's just outstanding to get a chance to chat with you about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone that wants to talk about it, I am gratified and I truly appreciate it. Thank you for taking your time for that as well.